Hi, welcome to Badgerpod Nerdcast number 50.
This fucking thing.
Why?
Sorry. Do the intro. Do the intro.
All right, let me try to get some positive energy here.
It's okay,
Hello,
man.
the best I can do. Hello, and welcome to Badgerpod Nerdcast number 50. Felt. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm joined by Dr. Randomer Cam. Say hello, Doc.
I am not here. Nobody's here. What are you talking about?
Oh,
And
This fucking thing.
Rachel.
hi everybody. This fucking movie.
Okay, now before we dive into the moist, red, cavernous dwelling,
No. Vaginas are warm and inviting, Brian. This movie is not warm and inviting, but go into the mailbag, please.
apparently
It's cold. It's cold, and what's the opposite of inviting?
expelling.
Repugnant.
Felt is now the opposite of inviting.
So,
It's repugnant.
well, let's before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, we're going to do the mailbag, and maybe try to get some introspection, laughs, or otherwise entertainment. All right, before we delve into what is the opposite of entertainment, dear Badgers, I'm writing to officially retract my previous request that you do a show on the CBS series Extant. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The season 2 finale totally destroyed my respect for its writers. You can see my detailed discussion of it here, and then there's a link. Eric Hamill. Well, Eric, I never really got around to watching it, but I'm glad that you discovered on your own that it was not worthy of being done on the show. Then you're probably still better off than we are for what we had to go through. But hey, we all have to take our licks, right? Did either of you guys know about the CBS series called Extant or Extant? No? Okay. All right, well then.
I don't get in on the ground floor. I barely get in on the top. Massive echo. Oh, who's that?
I don't know.
I'll try lowering my my thing. It could
Yeah.
be me.
I've got headphones.
All right. All right, so that was it. That's it for that. Were you guys in the chat? If you know about the show Extent and you have comments, go ahead and make them. All right, so another mailbag letter. Hi there, Badgerpod. Well, hello. I disagree on a lot of points you made during your talk about Hulk. Oh, we're talking about Asian Hulk. I'm talking from a perspective of a long-time fan of the character of Hulk and the character of Bruce Banner and read Amadeus from his first appearance. To start off, I'd ask, have you read Pack's run on Hulk? Moreover, the Amadeus storyline of him becoming who he is currently. It's a rather interest read, I'm assuming you mean interesting, that I'm glad I have been along for what is now 10 years of Amadeus Cho. Coming from an outsider perspective, it may seem like a slap in the face, but as a fan, I've been waiting for this for reasons too lengthy to go into. My hype, this is only compounded, my hype is only compounded by the fact Bruce is going to be depowered, and Pack writes a great depowered Bruce. The fact that we have Bruce and Amadeus together, and this time Amadeus has the power to change to established dynamic, is going to change their dynamic a lot, and I can't wait to read it as a Hulk fan, as a Bruce Banner fan, and as a fan of Amadeus Cho. I'm feeling like some things are lost due to the lack of knowledge of the dynamic, and I'd love to talk to you guys about it. However, I won't force it, especially since I can tell you a lot about Hulk, especially as Pack wrote him, that you may be surprised to learn. Hope you guys are doing well. Ike. Well, thank you, Ike. I'm not outraged. I just want to, for my part, I wasn't outraged at those changes, but it was pretty clear that you have to understand that when fiction is created, it is at some level just people talking about what they want to do, and they are usually approaching it from a we need this result. How do we use what we have to get to that result? So I think that when you look at the history of what Marvel had been doing in recent years, this just gets sort of piled on top of it. And even if they were intending on trying to make something really interesting, and even if it was, really well done, when you look at it in the context of everything else, it doesn't really come across as offensive. I wouldn't say that. That's kind of childish, but it certainly is kind of boring and dull. And you just sort of crave something else, something more interesting, something less predictable. And that's my issue. But if you want to talk about it, email us again or write a comment in regards to that. Those are just my feelings on it. I don't think it's particularly offensive. I just think it's just kind of lazy and uninspired. Do you guys have an opinion on all that I just read? And silence.
Comics is not my thing, I'm afraid.
Well, it's not that they made that choice, it's why. It's part of that new initiative. I think it's something like the Marvel Everything New or something initiative.
Yeah, that's pretty much the exact same thing.
They're just trying really, really hard to be progressive.
Yeah, it's not the matter that they did it, it's why. And then the reason for it ends up, you're going to end up with something flat no matter what, because eventually everything always goes back to square one, because when you have an industry as old as this, they have to keep writing. Imagine, and I'll just try to change the context so that you guys can better understand. Imagine if Led Zeppelin had to write songs forever, and they've been writing them since the 1930s, and every time a band member died, they would just hire more people, and they would just keep on writing songs. But they were known for doing it a certain way. If someone came along and started changing them arbitrarily because they felt like there was a reason they had to do it, then I think that people who have been listening to Led Zeppelin for a long time, or at least seen their established, legacy, would be able to detect that something was strange about it, not necessarily negative or offensive, but it would get to a point where you would find it to be dull and uninteresting. And of course, I guess if you had to write Led Zeppelin music for 50 years, eventually you are going to write stuff that's dull and uninteresting. Or if R.K. Rowling had to keep writing Harry Potter books until she basically, until she was no longer around, and then she had to pass the...
J.K. Rowling.
What did I say? R.K.? Sorry.
Yes.
J.K. Rowling, yeah. And let's say that
maybe she's just joking when she writes J.K.
J.K. Rowling, just kidding, Rowling.
Well, she's kind of trolly sometimes.
She's a little bit, yeah. But I mean, if she had to keep writing Harry Potter books, and let's say it became a franchise, it wasn't just her, but there was like a large company that just kept making stories related to the Harry Potter universe, and eventually, and you were writing this for several, let's say a couple of generations, which is really what comic books are, right? They're an entertainment medium that's intended for fun, and they're also intended to last a long time in this particular context. And if it got to the point where you were just injecting stuff in there for the sake of, political correctness or something that was very sort of shallow, especially in the way that they do it, then I think there would be people that would say, well, this isn't really going to work in the long run, because eventually you have to go back to writing about Harry and Voldemort or whatever the norm thing that people expect. So I think that, for me anyway, that's the reason why I had thoughts about what they were doing with Hulk, because it was just the same old song and dance that is ultimately not going to really get you anywhere. And if you really like the character of Amadeus Cho, then wouldn't you want him to be his own person? Wouldn't you want him to stand alone in some way and not just be in the shadow of some older, more established, more well-known character? I mean, that's how I see it. And I think that that's just more creative. So I hope that those aren't the worst fucking anecdotes that I'm making, but that's just what I came up with. Anyway, last letter. Ike. Thanks for the previous letter. So Flack has made an inquiry. All right. So he links a Tumblr, which I'm not going to click on because fuck Tumblr. I'm sure everyone has seen at least one image post where somebody went and took a bunch of white characters and painted over them to make them look non-white. Maybe because they weren't white in ethnicity, but were still given a lighter skin tone than Tumblr could tolerate, or maybe because someone really just wanted to see Belle or Cinderella looking like Beyonce. Disney seems to get the brunt of this, those backwards shitlords. But on my Tumblr feed today, I found the reverse. I was so triggered, I had to share it with the Badgers, so that you can all be triggered as well. Someone took all the ethnic minority princesses and painted over them to be white. If you check the notes, you see a mix between people recognizing it as a satire to people being genuinely upset, see, triggered, at some racist would dare do this to princesses of color. Just Tumblr being Tumblr. Okay, well, I don't know. I mean,
Oh, those
whatever.
poor snowflakes. Those poor snowflakes.
Those poor fictional fucking princesses.
Those poor snowflakes are just so triggered in their hug boxes. They're just shivering in the corner. And just, oh.
This is why I fear for the next generation.
Well, it's sort of, I don't know if it's good or bad or just weird to know that whiteface is now more offensive than blackface. We got there in a completely different way. I don't know what's going on anymore, guys. I'm going to drink now.
We're here. We're there. We're at the point where the most...
I wonder if they did Lilo as a blonde, because that's probably in there somewhere. I didn't.
She's not a princess, but yeah, I do know you're talking about.
Nah, yeah, fuck Tumblr. They're all princesses, Rachel. They're all princesses.
Oh God.
Yeah, kids. If you guys are arguing online about Disney movies, don't get jobs and go into the real world and try to institute policy and control our fucking future. Don't reproduce.
Seriously, don't.
When you're done growing up. I'm sorry, but that's just so fucking irritating. All right, so that's the end of that. Now now it's time for some real fun.
Now it's time for us to just try and pull ourselves from the weekend of depression we had watching this fucking movie.
Rachel, do you have a thing?
Do I have a thing? I have a really long fucking rant, if that's what you mean, but I'm not going to read that. I'm just going to
yeah, look, it's basically Tumblr the movie. You know how on the first Raging we did Tumblr the cartoon. Well, this is Tumblr the I don't know, slasher horror or something.
I think.
What's the genre here? I don't understand.
Well, they called it a psychological thriller.
Yeah, it's billed as a psychological thriller, and it's often reviewed or talked about in horror critic circles. But the only thing that's scary about this movie to me, the scariest thing about this movie is that there are critics out there that not only like it, but they think it's an important movie to watch.
Actually, the scary thing about this film is actually the second act of the film. But I think to explain what we're talking about here, we need to just start from the beginning.
Yeah, Rachel, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Felt is?
Yes. Okay.
And then, give us a brief synopsis.
Okay. To understand this movie, you first have to understand who Amy Everson is, because this is kind of a unique situation, because this is a fictional retelling of a part of the life of feminist artist Amy Everson, who decides that it's a good idea to make a movie about herself, playing herself in a movie by herself, and then proceeds to win an award for portraying herself in a movie about herself. And the reason why you, I don't know, maybe should care about this fucking monstrosity is that this is basically Feminism is Mental Illness, the movie. From the beginning of the film, basically what ends up happening is you see the artist Amy Everson, who is sulking and brooding away and crying to herself, and then you realize that shit's going down when she goes from sort of crying crumpled on the floor to then putting on a pair of dinosaur kigurumi pajamas and walking outside barefoot. It's basically 90 minutes of vocal fry, plus torture porn, plus just it's 90 minutes of incessant whining from a woman with a radical feminist with violent sociopathic fantasies.
What? How do I start?
Exactly.
What's vocal fry?
It's
when you talk like that.
It's like
duck as high in your throat as you can, like that.
It's kind of it's where you have a bit of a to your voice. It's
Yeah.
and I can do a good impersonation of her too. My life is a nightmare. I can't remember anything before the trauma. Everything just kind of blurs.
Stop it! Stop it!
I don't know what's real anymore.
Stop it! Oh my god.
See, it's this movie will give you.
It's a voice. It sounds like a cheese grater playing badly on a violin. Yeah.
It's like Fran Drescher possessed by the from Exorcist.
And so, yeah, this woman creates art, and I use the term art loosely for this because basically it's kind of like one part toys, one part histrionic disorder manifested into some pieces, and another part making a suit that makes you look like a fucking serial killer. And it's just,
I don't. Yeah, like a naked sex change clown.
And to explain this to you about, and you know, I'm gonna pull up what I had here when I was going and taking notes for this movie because I really wanted to try and sum it up as best as humanly possible by actually going down and making sort of annotations throughout the film. And so about 6 minutes in, this woman is playing around with the idea and talking to her friend jokingly after talking about how life is pain and she just wishes that she could just make everything stop hurting, but drugs are far too troublesome. That'll just numb the pain, and so she wants to try and live throughout life in some kind of fucking coma. So then she goes into a conversation with her friend where she starts talking about stabbing a man, having a fantasy about stabbing a man in the penis with a needle. And then her friend talks about how she's always wanted to strangle a man with her thighs, and then I think they talk about stomping a man's testicles with their feet. And that's about 6 or 7 minutes in. And so you know the things from that point are going to just be fucking painful. You don't watch this film, you survive it. Because anyone who isn't a social justice warrior, this oh god, it's painful.
So she's supposed to be an artist, right? That's the deal. Right?
Yes,
and her art is I mean, didactically within the movie, her art is she wears those how would you describe them?
Creepy unitards, flesh-colored unitards with felt genitals.
Yeah, so creepy sort of Batman Begins scarecrow heads on top of them with smiley faces on them. Yeah, and fake dicks.
She wanders through the woods, just crawling around and climbing up trees in her fucking creepy superhero outfit. And I'm not really, I have no idea what the fuck she's supposed to be doing out there, but somebody's needed to give her... Okay, here's the thing. If you're a friend of somebody like this, what you should do in that particular situation is get them help. I mean, because her friends had to know that she was doing this shit. They had to know. I mean, at one point she shows her friend, oh, this is my superhero costume, let's go kill people.
No, you said it wrong. This is my superhero costume.
This is my superhero costume. We can make the world a better place. We can go kill people.
Look, I don't see how she has any fucking friends at all. She should have this main character is. There's a little bit of irony in there. Don't feminists hate the magical pixie dream girl?
Yes.
And this character is kind of a magical pixie dream girl, except if she was
manically depressed
by the spirits of Voldemort and Maleficent, and fucking Hannibal Lecter.
It's like if someone said, but what if we actually made a movie about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl? If we made a movie from the perspective of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl? Yeah, that's it. Okay, well, do we need another one of these ever?
No.
Oh, good.
It plays out like the most stereotypical radical feminist stuff you can think of, because at one point there's a fucking vagina party.
Yeah.
Shit, you
not. Fuck yes. Oh, God. I only watched it once. It's all coming back to me. Oh, God.
I told you. I warned you that you might need so much alcohol that you might die watching this film.
Yeah. Well, Okay, so let's look at the men in this movie, because this is the most, I think, that stood out the most for me. So she has several encounters with different men in the movie, and all of them are terrible human beings, or at least they're presented as such.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to believe about them. First are the leering foreign guys. Yeah, what were they, like Irish or something?
Well, no, they
or
weren't
Australian or something? I think they were maybe Australian. I'm not sure.
Something
I only
like
watched
that.
it once,
Yeah,
and I
they
was.
were in the yeah, they were all hanging out with them and drinking and stuff.
Yeah, and I don't even think they did anything wrong. I mean,
No,
they
they
were
didn't.
flirting, and they were like, drinking and shit. But for some reason, I guess we were supposed to believe that these guys were
Well,
like.
she got triggered. She got triggered because
She got triggered by the male gaze, right?
and it's never explained why she's upset, but you can only assume that the reason why she's upset is because rape. Because that's pretty much what.
Oh, they never explain what the. She claims that there's some kind of trauma.
Yeah, she never explains it.
We never learn anything about it. We don't know why. We don't know. And I mean, even if we did, and this might be on purpose. Like, I would guess that even if they explain to us why she is so much of a shitty human being and just like hates everyone, hates everything, is a complete nihilist, wants to cut off dicks with scissors and all this, all the terrible things that she does, I think that there'd be no degree of backstory that would actually allow
Make up for it.
the audience to actually back her up on that.
Mhm.
She would have to instead give us anecdotal scenes where she interacts with other men, and of course all of them act like assholes, or ambiguously act like assholes, in scenarios that make no sense. Like, so the first guys are like,
There's foreign guys and they're just drinking.
yeah, they're just hanging out and drinking, but for some reason that triggers her, right? There's absolutely no explanation for it. And of course her roommate, I think her roommate, she's positive. She like wants to go get laid. She wants to go to parties. I don't get how these two are friends. They don't share any interests. They just happen to live together in their fucking like honeycomb treehouse and shit. Where they get to.
Where she's
act
painting
like
the walls, looking at the
children.
sky, and she's got all these toys and shit around, and she's trying way too hard to be fucking quirky and endearing, and fails at both.
Yeah, it's completely doesn't make sense. And hi Dean. We have a guest. And so that's the first encounter, and then the second male encounter she has is with a guy that she goes. I guess she just I don't know.
Blind date.
It was a blind date, but she met him online or something, because I think they were looking.
Yeah. They were trying to
The
find her
roofie
blind
guy,
date.
the fucking Hayden Christensen fucking roofie fella. Is that him?
Yeah, the roofie guy, right? He makes a roofie joke, which I don't know. Like, I don't know any guy who thinks that that's a good thing to say on a first date with someone you just met. But even still, okay.
He doesn't just tell a roofie joke. He goes into a whole sort of spiel about how roofies don't exist and it's all a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
How much women are just using that as an excuse to fuck as many guys as they want, and then and then never have to take responsibility for it later.
When he realizes he just said a whole bunch of dumb shit, which we don't know any reason why he would have, unless he either was trolling the entire time or he really believed what he was saying, and then he felt regret for the fact that she was just like, you're an asshole. And then he apologizes, and he's like, no, man, it's really fucked up, though. It's like really fucked up, though. And then, but still, like, if you're on a date with someone, and you say a bunch of dumb shit, and you fuck up, right? And there is a point at the blind date or your first date that you should know that this is not going to work. And I think it's when you tell the roofie joke and she does not respond in the way that you hoped.
So Dean, you met me at a very strange time in my life.
So then,
is that what it was? All right.
Yeah, but it doesn't end there, right? Because afterwards, they're still hanging out, and they're walking, and she's like, she's still hanging out with him, right? And she's like, oh, it's cold, and he's like, yeah, it is cold, and he tries to put his arm around her, and she of course recoils, you know, and she moves away, and he's like, well, how about you just hold my hand? And she's like, no. And then he tries, well, why don't you just hook my arm? And she's like, no. You know, and I think she calls him an asshole again, and he still follows her, dude.
Well, why? Well, it's not just that she's walking with him. That's the thing.
Yes.
He has the choice to leave at any point, and she doesn't. In fact, she could have left after the roofie joke, and she didn't.
No.
Is this what Mike's first dates always look like?
Roughly.
I mean, like they end up going into a tree. She climbs the tree. He climbs in with her. She doesn't tell him no. You know, I mean, like, I'm not saying that she's consenting, but I'm just saying that there's no point where you feel like you cannot. There is no such connection that happens in the real world where someone who clearly doesn't want to be around you is still allowing you to be around them, and you want to be around them. When there's clearly no chemistry, no nothing. It's just like he's being a bitch.
Can I propose a contrarian point of view?
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, by the way, everybody.
Thank you for coming on, Nate.
I like to be a contrarian, as anybody knows me knows, and so having only managed to get through 20 minutes of this film, and I felt so assaulted by it, I really couldn't keep going. I'm like, I'm sitting here watching, going, okay, none of this film felt authentic at all, but is it possible this is some kind of real lived, so-called lived, I mean, really, maybe this was someone's experience that just looked nothing of mine, and I know the particular beast of childhood abuse better than most. Maybe this was somebody's experience somewhere. It really stretched my imagination, but could it have been? I mean, just throwing it out there.
It could have been. I mean, there's no way of knowing because it claims that it's drawing from real experience. However, it's
drawing from real experience. Who wrote it? Who wrote it again?
The woman in the fucking film wrote it.
That's what I thought. She wrote it herself. All right.
So it would be nothing short of a confession of murder.
Or she at least, what do you call it? Or she at least influenced it, and basically it's based on her experiences as she probably explained to somebody.
I might also guess that given her age and what we know is frequently taught by those who counsel victims of child abuse is that she could have been brainwashed to find this a realistic portrayal of events. This is very possible. She literally has no other frame of reference because there's a lot of transference that goes on with kids, and one of the more common ones is that they blame dad, or if there's no dad in the home, then nebulous males for the abuse that their mother is inflicting on them. And so they're frequently have imaginary males, or they will just perceive males who are behaving quite normally as being just far more hostile. I mean, I'm saying this could be symptomatic of the abuse, but I don't know how you get the androphobia cured so that she can really heal. That's another thing I saw.
Well, from what I understand about this woman, and this is after looking, going to her website, going to her boyfriend's website, and about what he writes, which is the saddest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Well, I mean, it's her boyfriend.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. The reason why it's the saddest thing I've ever heard is that basically he explains situations where his girlfriend will tell him he's not feministing properly. He's not male allying properly, and so he needs to reassess everything that he's done thus far. And so it's basically, I'm sorry I'm white, I'm sorry I'm male, I'm sorry I'm heterosexual. That is the entirety of that blog. I am so very sorry that I am white and male and heterosexual. And then you look at things like her Instagram, and she posts things like pictures of dead animals that she just finds on the side of the road or walking around.
And so this aberrant behavior is excused by the fact that she was a victim of childhood abuse.
Well, they never explain it.
Which would be symptomatic, though, of somebody who's never been allowed to properly heal, and so this is what they wind up looking like, and they make films like this.
Or
I would think she's just histrionic.
Wait, go ahead, Mike.
It could just as easily be an artist who's encountered people like that and has, in their attempts to make art to pander to certain kinds of masses.
Wow. maybe.
has kind of taken that sort of thing on. Yeah,
Well,
I'm not
you know,
saying
maybe
that one
I'm giving you
either
too
is more
much
likely than the other.
I
But
hate to say it, but to me, what it seems like is she's actually very histrionic. And what is hinted at throughout the movie is that she was not hurt in childhood, but instead hurt by somebody in her last relationship or her last encounter with a man. That's how it's explained, and that's how it's also explained by her boyfriend as that it's basically about rape culture, that it's not about childhood abuse, that it's about rape culture, and that's why she's afraid of all of the men her age, and she feels like she can't interact with anybody, and that she's not safe anywhere, and that's why it's so disturbing when she finally, in the second act of the film, meets a guy who is, oh my gosh, the one good male, the one good man, in a white knight kind of guy who bends over backwards to put up with her bullshit, where she sits there and complains about pretty much everything. It doesn't matter. He'll put up these elaborate romantic scenarios and stuff for her to cheer her up and make her feel happy about life, and then she just doesn't. She says, "I still hate everything," kind of thing.
was this the guy at the end?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, even put on the
One good
woman
man.
suit.
Yeah, he threw her a vagina party and everything. And then what ends up happening in the film?
I mean, like, I don't know any guys that would throw their woman a vagina party. So this is a special kind of man.
Obviously, it's an art house film. It's all supposed to be fucking symbolic of one other thing. And one thing that I really need to keep in mind is, obviously, whether this is an actual victim of abuse or just an artist aping this, they obviously want reactions like pretty much like the ones we're giving. They want fucking hysterical, reactionary. Oh my god, this is sick. This is And I almost feel like there's no way to react without fucking doing that.
When I look at it, I do get torn. Like I said, I didn't finish it, but I've read about it. The androphobia just kind of comes out of it. I find myself wondering how many people can see it, or how many people are so brainwashed that they believe, yeah, that looks about right. That looks about typical. It does bother me because I've encountered people who've been through some of the Duluth model and other feminist-run rape crisis centers and domestic violence shelters, and they've been told all this patriarchy theory, and they're abused people who really need to be helping, so they're vulnerable to this sort of thing. I mean, I remember something that happened to me a few months ago. I started this hashtag just as a lark on Twitter called Spank a Feminist, and I was shocked by how many came back and were acting like I really intended, like there really would be roving bands of MRAs with paddles on the streets of London and New York looking for women, right? I mean, but they were acting so serious about it, and I was laughing at them. But one woman even sent me a picture, presumably representing herself. She sent me a drawing she had done of herself, or somebody, it was a woman and a man clutching a child, pointing a gun, or a woman and a child in a bed pointing a gun at some threatening man that was coming to get them. And I'm like, okay, that so smacks of propaganda. It's like, when does it become propaganda, and when is it just something that the victim has actually absorbed and just fucking believes now? It's something that really troubles me when I see this, what I call androphobic garbage. Those people, if they really think this way now, they're always going to think it, and that's kind of scary.
Well, I'm gonna be looking at the reviews and what Rotten Tomatoes had to say about Felt in a moment, so we can see what people are saying about it. And it is something like this should be laughed at. I mean, personally, that's what I think. I can see how, because as an artist myself, and I know a lot of artists, a lot of times they do draw from personal experience to, as inspiration. Musicians do it, painters do it. It's been like that, since we've had it probably. But I think that this to Dean's point, this androphobic message, it goes out there, and I think that there should be a lot of people that are saying, okay, this woman needs help.
And she won an award for her performance in this film. That's the worst part. And we haven't gotten to the worst part of all of this, though. The thing that bothers me.
Don't skip engineer guy, because he's my favorite.
Oh yeah,
I like engineer guy because
I love
okay,
engineer guy.
I gotta go into that. So the third blind date she goes on with her roommate. Her roommate really wants to just like find a good man and like, you know, get dug out like by some dick. Like that's what she wants. Like she wants a boyfriend, you know, and she wants that. But this main character doesn't want her with other people. Like they've talked about it. She's like, why are you even trying to do this? And she's like, because, you know, I want this. Of course, the main character doesn't. She just has a completely negative view of men all across the board. And so, but because she, I guess, is friends with her roommate, they go on another double date, or they go on a double date and they meet this guy, and they're having dinner or they're eating or drinking at a bar or something, and the guy asks, what's the main character's name? Annie or Ellen or something? I don't know. Whatever.
Anna. No, not Anna. Sorry, Amy.
Amy.
Amy,
Sure
right?
Amy.
Also, I want a correction. The engineer guy is actually her best friend's boyfriend.
Yeah, right. Well, but that because there's a bit of a there are time there are points where the movie moves forward, but we don't know how much, because when they go meet the foreign guys in the beginning, the roommate is there too, and I don't think she has a boyfriend at that point. But then later, when they're on this double date, she does. So my assumption would be that like some time has passed because she's been making crazier and crazier superhero costumes, and you know, they're going on more dates. But we don't really know. It's not really clear. So, but yes, that's her boyfriend. But this apparently the boyfriend is meeting her for the first time, right? Because he says, "What do you do for a living?" Which is something that you would do.
No, that's her best friend's boyfriend.
Oh.
That's not her boyfriend. That is her best friend's boyfriend. So her best friend's boyfriend has been dating her friend for a while when this happens.
All right. Well, then they meet and he asks her what she's doing, what she does, and she's like, "I'm an artist." And you know, he says, "Well, how does that contribute to society?" And of course, you know, he's an engineer, so in his mind, he does contribute to society, and artists don't. And it's funny because, again, this is another one of those weird conversations that I don't think happens. I mean, I've never met anyone ever in my life who has asked me what I do for a living. And I'm a man, so what I do for a living is very important to people. And they've asked me what I do, and I say I'm an artist or an illustrator, and then they say, well, how the fuck does that contribute to society? I'm an engineer, asshole. You know, no, that doesn't happen. But that happened in this movie. And he put her, you know, on blast, apparently, in front of her friend and his friend. And, you know, of course, later on, not only was he an asshole because he had a good-paying job, supposedly, and contributes to society, which, as I understand it, engineers, because they tend to be in STEM, a lot of guys in STEM tend to be a little bit more introverted. I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but that's what I think. So it's a weird character that doesn't normally happen, with a conversation that doesn't normally happen. And then, of course, when they're leaving, he's threatening to beat up his girlfriend, like right there on the street. So he's not only that, but he's apparently violent as well, which is just all this shit that just doesn't make any sense. And why would you stay with a man who, I know that this sort of thing does happen, but in the context of this film, why would you stay with someone who's abusive over a long period of time? And then that just like all these things are clearly constructed to send out the message about how bad men are, without considering how much sense it makes in a narrative that you're trying to tell, especially if you're trying to say that this is like based on real events. And I wonder, in a way, if the idea that it's being told to us that it's based on real events, which you can't really confirm, is intended to further scare people about men. To say, this stuff happens, this is real. I mean, what does that say, you know?
I mean, the idea that this can even get 58% on Rotten Tomatoes, is that what it got?
On Rotten Tomatoes, it's at 58%, yes. The idea that it would even get that far.
It should have got below 20. I mean, the fact that it got that far is because there's a critical mass of people who are just compelled to say, yes, no, this is good because of women victim.
Social justice circle jerk.
I'm on a podcast.
Hello, Dean.
But, yeah, man, engineer guy, he's the shit because, I don't know, he's just so ridiculous. It's like the same reason why I like Darth Vader. Doesn't make sense.
on the other hand, the black chick
I liked Engineer Guy too because he just doesn't fucking exist. He's such a character that just doesn't. Dean, we heard all
You're
that.
having microphone issues?
Dean, we heard all that.
Oh my God, you heard all of that?
Yeah,
Most of it, yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake! I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I thought I muted. I
So
apologize.
So should we tell her about? Should we tell them about how she met the one good guy? The one.
Yeah,
good
we
man?
should.
How did she meet the one good man?
The one good man.
and made it all better for her.
Well, wait, Rachel. You skipped gross neckbeard photography guy. There's just.
Oh yeah, neckbeard photography guy with the cowboy hat and everything. And it seems like she answers like this weird Craigslist ad, and then I think to be a nude model for a photography shoot kind of deal. An artsy one or a pornographic one. It's hard to know. And then so she shows up, but she's got this one of her weird costumes on with the felt vagina and the fake boobs, fake boob bra, and she's like, it's a representation of the female form. I like it. And then she just kind of does things like fart on the bed and stuff like that, and starts.
Yeah. She's like, girls fart too. Like, like we don't know.
Yeah, she's absolutely disgusting.
What does it say of their view of female sexuality that it almost seems to involve just complete inertness? Like, it's just whatever happens, happens. I even noticed that in one of the early makeout scenes where she lets him kiss her.
Yeah.
And then gets difficult with him. And that's how it's like he's being the asshole when she suddenly starts getting hostile, and he's like, hey man, whatever, relax. Well, you were just letting him kiss you, nothing happened, and you got hostile.
Yep.
Oh, you're talking about
early on
that's early on, right in the film. And
tree
it's just like,
roofie joke guy.
Like basically, sex and even making out and kissing is something you do to me, and I'll decide at some point whether or not I'm okay with this. That seems to be the whole motif of female sexuality that I see out of this and things like it. You know, just this helplessness. This. Let me just starfish for you, and I'll see if I like it. I'll let you know. This is a sense I get, you know, of how they see female sexuality.
It's so bizarre. And why did she even take that guy to a tree anyway? Why did she take the original roofie guy to a tree? It makes no sense. Like, she took him to the tree. She led him to the tree.
No, she did. She should have been like, you know what? If he was creepily following her, she should have been like, okay, this is my bus. I'm leaving. Or let me call a cab. You need to leave me alone. Or I'm going to call the cops. I have a cell phone. Let me call my girlfriend. Come pick me up. Anything. But no. Let's go to this tree. And let me see how you act here. And, of course, it's just fucking stupid. And she's a loser. She, like... okay, this movie is everything I hate about indie film because of the way it's shot. I fucking hate... This is what I hate about indie movies. It's shot like an indie film. Like, it was with some guy's home camera, and he thought, I'll just get, like, high exposure and let the sun, like, shine in and like, blur the lines and the lights and shit. Like, this is the way indie movies are shot.
You're playing with a fucking spider web.
I fucking hate indie movie music that sounds like one guy on a sitar with the fucking, like, who has, like, Fruity Loops that he just discovered how to make beats on, and the fucking the no
beats,
script.
they just make like insane scratchy noises that go.
All right. So in other words, what you're saying is that the typical movie reviewer is going to be a very, very brave, groundbreaking film by a very, very brave, groundbreaking artist. That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
It's everything bad.
Everything we don't need to saying everything we're afraid to see.
Yeah, right. This is what it's supposed to be. And it's not. It's not really brave. It's not telling us a perspective that hasn't been drilled into our heads many, many times before on mainstream media. This message is not new. This is not innovative. It's not courageous. It doesn't feel like it's anyone's story. It feels like someone's narrative. It feels like someone's like made a story up and they thought, I'll use real actors and like fucking shitty-ass music and shitty-ass camera and no scripts to make the dialogue sound natural while everyone pretends like they're funny and they actually just sort of flop around like fish out of water trying to figure out how to get the dialogue out of their lungs, and they end up sounding like shit until the end of the scene, and then they just go to a random other scene that makes no fucking sense. Like,
the message isn't new, but it's more concentrated than ever before. They've really preened all the shit away and trimmed all the fat and gone, do you realise we actually want to cut men's dicks off? This is actually what's going on here. Why don't you get it yet? I think we get it now, yes.
We get it, you have penis envy. We get it. Like, this is like a Freudian nightmare.
It really does frighten me, the pod person mentality that appears to afflict some individuals. I will never forget a few months ago, well, earlier this year, a reporter at a public radio station in New York, upstate New York, far off New York, interviewed me. He was obviously very young, fairly fresh out of college, and he was asking me about the misogyny on our website and quoted something or other that he'd seen on Raw Story, and I said, well, go back and look at where you got that from. And it was some video where Tom Golden and Warren Farrell and Paul Elam were talking, and he did get back to me about a week or two later and said, yeah, I watched the whole thing, and what did you think? He said, I don't see how you could not see that just as a bunch of misogyny. I'm like, okay. Like, are you a pod person? They weren't talking about women hardly at all, and it was like, wow. Like, what percentage of the population might actually be brainwashed and believe this is like really typical stuff? It scares me sometimes. It's just like, wow, this is reality. How many of you are there? What else do you believe?
I would actually like to read the description that Amy Everson's boyfriend, Michael Lovan, wrote on his website, which is at imnotamotivationalspeaker.com, which, of course, has a study list. Yes, which means it has a whole bunch of materials which you must read to understand the weight and depth of what he's saying. But here we go. Here's the description of the film that he wrote. Felt, directed by Jason Banker. This film is a fictitious take on the life of artist and social misfit Amy Everson, weaving her real-life experiences into a narrative about crafting control over male domination. Jason Banker has in Felt a moving, frightening warning of the consequences of rape culture and female subjugation. Just a few days after the film's premiere, Amy took home the Best Actress Award at Fantastic Fest 2014, and used the moment to express her gratitude for those who have shared their experiences and have spoken out against misogyny. That a woman who has had her experiences denied time and time again had an opportunity to share her story in a film is rare enough, but that she was able to step up to a stage and speak with grace inspires me. Amy also happens to be the love of my life, and I could not be more proud that her voice is resonating with people as it has.
How old is Amy? How old is Amy?
I don't even know. I'm thinking early 30s, to be honest.
Oh, really? Oh, then it's really too late. See, this, I remember I was watching, and just don't mind me if I ramble. If I do too much, let me know. But I was watching one of the latest Sargon of Akkad videos, the one on Laurie Penny. And my wife and I are both sitting there watching. And just, agog, right? And then I looked over at my wife and I said, there's no hope for her, And she just looked at me like, no, she was ruined. Her parents ruined her. Like, that's a human being that's never changing. Like, they've been coddled so long, they literally probably cannot function without just being constantly told that they're right about everything. Like these people could probably barely feed themselves if they were left to their own devices. I really think this is like the end point of training a child to be a narcissist.
She lives like a child. Like, her room has like toys everywhere, and it's a
bunk bed.
She sleeps in a bunk bed with her roommate. She's like a 10-year-old, and I don't know if that's supposed to be quirky and attractive, or if that's supposed to say something about her, because it says something about her. And she, they're all like these 20-something hipsters, and they're complaining about how hard they have it in their
I'm actually serious here. The money evaporates. What happens to these people?
I wondered exactly how she made enough money to pay rent in an apartment or wherever it is the fuck that she's living.
Well, yeah,
because it's never made clear exactly what the fucking living situation is, and then you realize that she has to work as a side job dressed up as a chicken. Moving cars through, so she's really not making fucking money as much as she suggests in the film. That even that makes no fucking sense at all. I mean, nothing.
I'm talking
here,
about the real world woman. The real woman who made this.
I know.
Is certainly a trust fund baby.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And they're trying to portray her as this this person who's she's the underdog. No, this is someone who's been coddled, and the first time she actually feels any kind of trauma. And here's the thing: since it's never explained what trauma she actually experienced, what ends up happening is it could have been anything. Someone could have told her to smile, and now she's just going on this, having these violent fantasies. We really don't know, but ultimately,
Entirely possible.
Yeah, but ultimately she finally meets the one good man, and he decides he wants to help her start a new life. And he does so by decorating the hallway and stuff with red fabric and things like that. And then in the entrance to the kitchen is a vagina. It's her new birth. She has to step through the fabric vagina to be born and enter a new life, because this is, I guess, a fucking art film. And there's a vagina cake, and I don't give a shit if somebody goes out of their way to make you a fucking vagina party. You don't get to say, oh my god, this person is a terrible boyfriend, this person is abusive, oh my gosh. No, this guy was trying really, really hard. He did all kinds of crazy stuff, listened to her talk about sexual objectification, watched her fucking stab a felt penis again and again, and then he's like, okay, that's cool, she's just going through some shit. And that's the fucking scary aspect of this film. This is the horrific part of the film, because there's so many guys who meet this girl, this particular girl, the girl that they interpret, these guys who have no sense of a relationship with red flags. And what they do is they see this girl and they think, oh my gosh, she's just this poor, wounded flower, and I need to just sort of pick her up. And if I do that, she's going to be less crazy. And maybe I can
knew
heal
a guy
her.
like that. I knew a guy like that. It was devastating. She ruined his life, and and left him crying over how he'd failed her. It was horrible. Oh, I saw that happen in real life. Whenever I hear these things, though, all I can think is this old. I mean, it sounds like historical hyperbole, but I'm serious. The words "late-stage empire" keep coming to me, because, oh my God, who can even afford to spend time on drivel like this? I mean, meaningless drivel, which appears to have no real relation to real life. It just doesn't. This has nothing to do with what abuse looks like. This is.
It's as though everyone in this movie has a whole lot of spare time, though.
Yeah,
I guess it does take place in San Francisco.
Yeah,
by the way.
But the scary thing is when it changes. Her friend, who of course was in the photo shoot with her, says, "Oh, by the way, I think, and this is the key word here, I think I saw your boyfriend with somebody else." And she takes a blurry photograph of who she thinks is Amy's boyfriend with some other guy from behind, so you never see the face or anything, and shows her a blurry photograph, and that's enough for her to feel like, oh my God, I think he totally fucking cheated on me. He totally did it. And then she's brooding away, and she asks him, "Where were you the other day?" And he said, "I was at work." So if it wasn't him, he was fucking at work. And so what happens next? There's no fucking reason for it. So
well, she does go through his phone when he falls asleep while they're watching TV or something. But we don't ever see what it is that she finds, because they never really show you the phone. But yeah, she does go. She basically, her friend who didn't like her boyfriend at all from the beginning, right? Who she had recently liberated from creepy neckbeard photography guy, because apparently she wanted to be attractive and be a model, but not really. She just needed to be reminded and told about her internalized misogyny.
Yeah,
and she never liked her boyfriend, so she was following him around, took some photos, and then planted the seeds of mistrust in her, and then she started to that basically got the wheels rolling. To try to condemn this guy who may or may not have done anything, but of course she didn't trust him anyway, because then otherwise this wouldn't have happened. And that's when it leads to the final crescendo.
Where she decides, she says, "Hey, let's go on a date in the woods, in the middle of fucking nowhere. Let's go off the beaten path." And you can see that he's visibly uncomfortable the farther out they go, because she doesn't explain anything. And so she takes him out to the place where she was doing the creepy serial killer-esque stuff, like poking things with sticks and wearing her crazy flesh-colored unitards and shit like that. And so she says, "We're gonna play dress up." And so she gets inside this sort of emptied out this hollow portion of redwood tree, and they start. And she asks him to put on the female costume, and she puts on her male costume with her fake dick, because that's. And you think to yourself, okay, maybe she's gonna beat the shit out of him. We don't know. They go and they lay on this dead log. And they're there for a while, and they're staring up at the sky, and then she starts kissing him. And then you're like, okay, all right. And then it turns out she had left the bag that she took with her off on the side of the tree. And so she reaches into the bag, the paper bag, and she withdraws.
That's where I bailed.
She withdraws her creepy pair of scissors, and you're like, oh, God. And then she stabs him in the chest a bunch of times, rubs the blood all over her body, and then cuts off his dick and balls, and then places it between her legs, and then starts climbing shit like she did when she was, like, before.
And this doesn't count as a spoiler, folks, because it's not like it completes an arc or reveals anything or makes you go, oh, I see. It's because that's where the film ends. It's just that happens, and then boom.
I was ready to vomit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, already getting up to that point. Like, the amount of Miss Andry in this fucking film, the amount of hate on the part of the protagonist is fucking disgusting. This woman is fucking disgusting. There's no reason, even if she was abused, to empathize with her, because every moment you even have an inkling of feeling, okay, you know, this is a person and everything like that. She does something like fucking talk about sexual objectification and how she is fucking oppressed and can't enjoy anything. No, there's a lot of things for you to enjoy, Amy. You don't fucking like anything. You just don't. You don't. You like being outraged. You like being fucking depressed. You like being seen as this crazy individual, and you won't let it go, because if you do, you have no fucking identity left. And that is what this movie is. This is what this fucking movie is.
Okay, Dean, go ahead.
That's magnificent, but I will note one grand irony to this, which is that if you look at how abuse actually works, and like I said, I've stared really deep into the belly of that particular beast, both personally and otherwise, and while not all abused children, sexual or otherwise, grow up to be abusers, very nearly all abusers were abused. So, although I don't think that this is what the filmmaker intended, but with an ending like that, she just helped probably unwittingly demonstrate what untreated abuse actually looks like, because it does. Virtually all abusive people were abused.
Yeah,
but that message is missed by the way this is all presented.
And all of her friends at one point or another who saw her make the creepy fucking costumes and do all this crazy ass shit, nobody said, okay, maybe we need to get her some mental help. Maybe she needs to talk to a fucking therapist.
Yeah,
this entire film could have been solved and everything just by this.
But Rachel, you know there are no help resources available for women under those circumstances.
I know, right?
No, Rachel. The truth is this. The truth is, this is the truth. Anne, is that her name? Anne? Amy? Amy's not crazy. Everybody else is. That's the...
And you just don't understand.
Right?
You don't understand.
Hashtag kill all men.
If only there was a place for women to go to talk about how they've been raped and abused and everything like that. If only there were special laws that to go so far as to take away rights from men to privilege women so that they are absolutely gonna get their guy even if that guy isn't the real guy. We're gonna If only there were those kinds of things for women. If only
I could go into Google and type "help, I've been raped" and see some resources show up that some woman somewhere might want. How do we live in this?
If only your friends knew of something that they could do to help her. Not have the violent fantasies about stabbing men in the chest and then cutting off their dick. I mean, I'm really afraid for her partner. No, that's the thing. I am absolutely afraid for her partner, because what is this movie about? The one good man. And what is Michael Lovan trying to be? The one good man. So much so that he felt like he needed to talk to me in the comment section of when I originally looked at the trailer and made my predictions for what the movie was going to be about. He felt like going in the comment section and talking to me, and then once I actually had the balls to pretty much give him the written equivalent of a spanking, he runs back to his partner and deletes fucking everything.
Wait, but so he was trying to mansplain to you about what the movie was about?
That I wasn't. Yeah, exactly. And I simply don't know I don't understand what this is about, and I simply don't understand feminism. I'm not a good writer, and I need I need to watch the film, and then I'll understand what it's all about, and I'll understand the depth of this film, and her strength, the strength of his partner, and what she was trying to do.
Here's the thing that gets me is that we of course know that there's this white knighty thing going on in what you're describing, and there could be some amount of intellectual cowardice, right, which you've seen a lot of feminist men especially. Yeah. But I don't know, lately I really am starting to believe in the existence of pod people of some sort who really just 100% of this, there is no cognitive dissonance in them of any kind while this is coming out. I mean, like, they're not reachable because there isn't, not because they're afraid, because there's literally, their brain is just stuck here. I remember being struck by that, especially the first time I actually saw Jonathan McIntosh being interviewed, or talking to the camera, and that is so convincing. Or no, every word that he's saying makes complete and total sense to him, and he really doesn't understand why you don't agree with him. And I'm starting to wonder, like, how many of these pod people are there that might really, like, every bit of this makes complete and utter sense to them in every way.
It boggles my mind to think of if history ever fixes itself, if the world ever fixes itself, how are we going to look back on this period? Because even today we look back on the kind of literature that was written about black people as late as 100 years ago, and the kind of cartoons they were doing. And if 100 years from now, for instance, if the feminist spectre is defeated, and we look back on films like Felt,
no.
I mean, what's the worst thing you can find that was written about black people 100 years ago?
Well, I was just going to mention that I think I need to watch something a little bit less hateful now that I've seen Felt, just to wash out the palate. So if any of you guys in the chat have a link to the original Birth of a Nation, I could
shit!
Actually, no, Brian, no. Birth of a Nation is not as hateful as this film.
No, it's not.
It's not, because I can tell you there are positive portrayals of black people, at least as, like, nursemaids and stuff. So there was something positive to be found there, at least.
I'm going to have to watch Requiem for a Dream to cheer me up now.
Oh, God! Oh, shit! Yeah, this is depressing, because you realize these people exist. There are people who actually believe that the world is like this, that women can't go outside without having men want to rape them. There are women out there who believe this shit, that every man is potentially dangerous, every single one. And it's fucking scary.
Let's one last thing I want to say. This movie, even if it wasn't about what it's about, would be a shit movie. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Most movies are done in a way where they have peaks and valleys. So you have, like, moments where stuff is happening, and then the audience is let a break and things like go down. But you're still, like, moving along at a relatively brisk pace if the pacing is done well, and you have basically a rhythmic experience. It's like up and down, and that's how it goes until it ends. Felt never feels like it's going anywhere except right in the middle. It's monotone, basically for the whole movie. Even at the end, when she, like, does the deed and finally kills someone, it's not. It's just kind of boring. The death is boring. And you know, and it's sort of like, yeah, okay, I saw that coming. Like, whatever. You're not really.
Okay,
it's not like Basic Instinct where you saw the ice pick go into the guy's face. You're like, oh shit, you know, like that made you wince. It's not like that at all. It's basically. I was saying this before the show started. It's basically like a guy sat on the toilet and took a shit that lasted for an hour and 40 minutes, and it just sort of like was a constant and slow stream, like soft serve ice cream, just for an hour and 30 minutes. Shit, just like coming out.
I recall several sections that were distinctly nutty.
It was just a shit movie in terms of it being a constant stream, and even if it was not about what it was about, it could have been about anything else. And if it was done the same way with the fucking shitty dialogue and the shitty music and the shitty film quality and the shitty acting, by the way, this fucking woman won an award for, it would still be a constant hour-and-a-half long shit session. I would rather have been taking a shit that long where I'd probably have to call a doctor, because that's really serious, guys. If you have that, you need to call somebody.
You know, if she...
I would rather have that than watch this movie.
You know, if she had just actually done what I had predicted that she would do instead, it would actually have been a more interesting film. If she had actually put on the costume and just started fucking killing people, that would have been more entertaining than what this happened in this film. Instead,
it was also pretty corny at parts too, by the way.
Yeah, oh god, and like I said, but it really is like 90 minutes of incessant vocal fry, and whining, and oh my god, my life is fucking terrible, but you won't do anything to make your fucking life any better. No, and even when you do, even when you have the opportunity, you know, all these people are bending over backwards to try and make you happy. Are you fucking grateful? No. No.
It's the film equivalent of a soft diarrhea.
They've found this perfect sort of art house balance where anything anyone says about it, they can just say, oh, well, you just don't get it because it's too dark for you. Yeah, it's not too dark for me, cunt.
I'm sorry. At the point where you're cutting someone's dick off, you don't get to call this shit artsy anymore. This is a glorified Lifetime movie. Okay? You don't get to fucking say, oh my god, you just don't understand the artistic depth of what it meant for her to cut some guy's dick off and then place it where her vagina is.
Why is this woman so obsessed with genitals? The genitals is like it's like that's all. I thought feminists were all about gender as a social
construct. It's a frightening nightmare.
What's with the focus on genitals? Like that's like penises and vaginas all through the movie, and I'm like, what is this? I was inured. I didn't even care anymore. I was like, yeah, it was another penis, so what? Like, I just didn't even care. And then weren't they photographing guys' penises in a club and like looking at them and comparing them? Like, what is that? Is that supposed to make me feel bad? Because men willingly send pictures of their penises to women, and I thought that was bad. I don't get it. Like, what are the rules? What are the rules, guys?
What's the fucking point? And I remember at certain points in the film being like, nope, 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 and what the fuck am I looking at? What the fuck are you doing? Like,
here's another thing. As far as I understood it, she was the only person that knew how to like make her little felt vaginas and penisia. Yeah. She was the only person I knew of that could make that shit. So when her boyfriend walks her through the Scarlet Caverns into the felt vagina doorway, who made that? Did she make that and not remember? Because I don't know anyone else that. I mean, I know that's a plot hole, and I mean that as a pun as well as a.
We're supposed to think that he made it, basically.
But he doesn't. He's supposed to be. See, that's I don't get it. He's creative.
I think we surely.
We don't even know anything about him. He's got the depth of.
We're supposed to land on it's just art house. It's just symbolic. A wizard did it, etc., etc.
And that's the thing. We know nothing about this guy. We don't know what he does for a living. We don't know what he likes to do. All we know is that he's her boyfriend, basically. None of that, nothing really matters. It didn't matter enough to say anything about him other than the fact that, I don't know, he gave her a vagina party and he took her some nice places and put up with her crap. I mean, I'm sorry, all of the stuff that he's done shows me that he is entirely inconsistent with a guy who would cheat on his girlfriend, because he, like I said, he did all of this shit for her. I mean, Like, this is above and beyond the average boyfriend and what the average person is willing to fucking put up with. And he put up with it, and he took it like a fucking champ. And she doesn't appreciate anything. Nothing.
I would also point out that we want to do a show about plot holes, and they literally walked through a plot hole into the party because I don't see how that could have been made without her. So that was a plot hole that they walked through. All right, so let's look at the positive reviews. I'm going to read a couple of these. They're just the critic reviews for Felt. We want to get the other side. We want to see what people were seeing that we don't see. So let's see. Okay. So Los Angeles Times, Robert Abel says, Felt is a moodily disturbing character study of a besieged woman for whom art is engagement and a coping mechanism, but also conversely a source of alienation and even a weapon. Okay, I'm not going to go to the actual page.
I'm sorry, you don't get to call this artsy when the woman who the story is about, like, paints goatsy on a plate.
You don't get it, Rachel.
You don't get to fucking call it classy at that point.
Maybe if you understood something about abuse.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Here's another one. Some viewers will no doubt find Felt maddening because it never answers seemingly crucial plot questions that a normal movie or TV show would feel compelled to clear up. Well, yeah, like who made that giant vagina? That vagiant in the doorway. That ambiguity is precisely the source of its power and its cinematic quality. Thank you, Andrew O'Hear from Salon.com, who is not surprised by that.
Anything that can be said about a David Lynch film is complete bullshit.
Explain.
It's the Lynch test.
Explain. Fucking explain. Why are they going to a tree? Never fucking explained. What happened to her? Never fucking explained. Why is she walking barefoot outside in kigurumi pajamas? Never fucking explained. Why is she wearing, I don't know, a boxing helmet? Never fucking explained. Just because she's that quirky kind of person. Why is she going through the woods? Why is she going through the Goodwill, like pulling sheer fabric over her face or blowing into a plastic baggie? Why were these the choices made for the film? Why is she poking a spider with a stick?
Oh boy. Okay. Here's another one. Dan Schindel, movie Mezzanine. It uses empathy as a weapon against the audience, forcing them to confront this aspect of our culture in all of its ugliness. It's unshakable, as it should be. The empathy? Oh,
I honestly think this is almost an insult to actually, you know, it totally is. This is an actual insult to actual sufferers of rape and violence, okay? This really is. It's a fucking insult.
Oh my god. All right. Jenny Miller, AV Club. Oh man. Well, I'm like noticing a pattern of who's giving this good reviews, but anyway. Although there are a few moments that feel a little too on the nose, too on the nose? Felt sneaks up on you and lingers for hours afterwards. What do you mean by too on the nose? It's like too accurate? Too real?
Well, I'll tell you what. I happen to know that I've spoken to some people who are English as a second language, and to some of them, on the nose sounds like smells bad.
Yeah.
So perhaps it is on the nose.
Well, you know, it touches you inappropriately.
Oh, it's a very inappropriately touching film.
Yes, that's why it's called Felt.
Oh, God.
That director and co-writer Jason Banker's story of post-rape trauma is deeply unpleasant. You were expecting maybe a cheerful story, one in which Chekhov's gun somehow doesn't go off, but thoughtfully, creatively so. So why would anyone expect a post-rape trauma story to be pleasant or cheerful? I don't think people would. But I don't think that's what's in question here. I think it's just that this movie is just shit!
And it doesn't have to be cheerful. It's not that it isn't cheerful. It's that there is no reason to identify with the main character whatsoever because she's a horrible fucking human being who wants to hurt people.
Oh, you know what? Oh,
even then, I mean, they make the way that they've made Hannibal Lecter has been made more empathetic than this woman. Okay, there are tons of films where there are people who do terrible things, and you like them more than you like Amy Everson in this film. There's no reason to like her whatsoever.
There were a lot of attempts at humor. Mike, do you remember the humor attempts?
What? You what, mate?
Oh God, I remember it.
No, there was a lot of attempts at humor, weren't there? I think there were attempts. Like
humor,
I could see the
You're gonna have to remind me.
Which is humor in quotation marks, I suppose. Like I think that the point where they were talking about like strangling a man with their thighs.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that was meant to be funny, but
Yeah.
that's funny in the way like Valerie Solanas' like the Scum Manifesto is funny.
Yeah, it's almost like a fright. It's you have to laugh to deal with what you're listening to, not because you think it's funny. I can't. I'm not gonna read any more of these. I'm done. They don't get better. So, it's just,
You know what? I think this will sum it up pretty well. And this is something written on Michael Levin's blog, and it's something that he wrote as a piece about him being a cis white male. And this is not the whole thing. I'm just gonna read a passage here. Around 6 months ago, my girlfriend challenged me to define feminism. I couldn't, because I knew on some level that my definition of feminism was incomplete. What I knew about it mostly derived from the marginalizing comments of men. The conversation haunted me, and I found myself both intrigued and mortified as we continued to dialogue about what it means to be myself and what it means to be her in the world that we occupy together. We can swim in the same fishbowl together for the rest of our lives, but it's at her, my colorful fish, for whom the patrons will be tapping the glass. A few weeks back, I left the grocery store, bags in hand, headed to my car. At the same time, I noticed a woman across the parking lot doing the same. While I strolled comfortably to my vehicle, she never stopped glancing in opposite directions at her fast pace to hers. On her fast pace to hers. I had the feeling that she felt generally unsafe. She opened the door, glanced around, got into the driver's seat with her bag, locked it, and drove away. I've witnessed the same pace and nervous energy a number of times since then. I cannot accurately assume the common feeling that these women share walking to their vehicles in the night time, but I can see it every day now.
wow.
Yeah. So this is what has been done to this man. Okay, this is what has happened. Him just being supportive to this woman, the woman who made this film, is not enough. She just told him to reevaluate all of that. That's not enough. You're not feminist enough. You can't even be a feminist. You can only be an ally. And in the whole blog is dripping with stuff like this. This is not something that is written by somebody who's in a healthy relationship. This reads like a fucking war story.
Is it ironic that this film has been directed and written by a man?
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't want to challenge the special snowflake. He would only want to help her get her vision to the world so they will understand her pain.
Is it possible that the man who directed and wrote this may have also been the one who fronted most of the money to get it made? And that actually she was like, I want to make this movie about and he's like, well, whatever you want, babe, I'll pay for it because you know.
Actually, he wasn't the one who made the film, but he did a lot of the promotion for it. I think he's actually her agent now. But yeah, he's done a lot of. I think he's also a screenwriter, strangely enough.
Well, she has a very bright future in indie films.
Oh God! And
look up Wes Anderson immediately.
So he's done a lot of the promotion on the film and everything like that, and so she's probably like, hey, you're not feministing enough. You're not
yeah.
But it's okay because I think what we can do is we can make a vagina party that will.
Yeah. You know what? You know how when they make films about World War II or Vietnam and and what they do is if they want to make it really accurate, like if Kubrick is doing like Full Metal Jacket or when Spielberg is doing like Saving Private Ryan, he went and like talked to real veterans of the war to get an idea of what it was like, and he was using that just to make sure that he wasn't disrespecting or misrepresenting the source material. So essentially, this woman was the war correspondent contact person that they were using as their, as the reference to like make sure that they got this movie right from her perspective. Because that's her war, you guys. It's against men. This isn't like, Japan or the Nazis. And this isn't the Viet Cong. This is men. And this needs to be told.
And this to me is almost like, part of me thinks this has got to be one of the most evil ideologies that's ever existed, only because, racial and ethnic strife is one thing, but it's a constant in human experience. Actually outright setting out to create a war between the sexes is like, I can't imagine anything more nihilistic toward even the human race. You know what I mean? And that's what this is. It's so sad. Although I guess sane people will ignore it. Maybe. We hope.
Maybe.
Well, that brings me to my final point. It was almost fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Almost.
Almost?
It was at like 58% or something.
How?
That means that there were that number of critics that thought, this is okay. Like, they watched it. Can you imagine? This is why I'm like, okay, so if Birth of a Nation, if they released it in theaters right now and they had people review it, do you think it would get 58% on Rotten Tomatoes? I don't think so. Even if it did have positive portrayals, even if critics went in and they were just trying to rate it on the merits of it being a good film, period, it would not get that kind of review. There is it might just be in the film critic industry specifically, because I know that there's a lot of manginas that do like reviews and shit. And that's sort of like a dominant sort of like way of thinking. But the idea that a film that has as much hate in it and anger and angst as this almost became a fresh film, and the woman in it got an award for Best Actress or something, that is probably the scariest and most terrifying part of all of this, to me anyway, is that there is an attitude that is dominant, because even like the viewer reviews, like the people who weren't critics and they just went and saw it, that was at 49%. That's like half. So, what?
I don't quite know how much of this was even acting. So many of the scenes look like they just put a bunch of people in a room and got them drunk and filmed them.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like there's a coherent script. Sometimes there's these two girls who are talking to each other, and they sound like they're not even listening to each other. They're just talking over. Neither of them's talking on a cell phone or anything, but they're just having completely different dialogues. And in so many scenes, it looks like that.
There was like no script. They were just high and drunk and talking.
Yep.
And I guess there was a general idea, well, by the time this is over, you should talk about what you want to do to a man's penis. But other than that, just say whatever. That's basically how they approached every scene. Make sure you crank your victimhood up to 10 or 11. Just
to some degree, some movies do have moments of spontaneous like improvisation, but it doesn't make the whole movie look like it was filmed in by drunk people in the dark.
Yes, that's what Dr. Red Debercam does. He has a patent on that.
Aww.
But he does it so well.
Yes, he does.
I'm sorry.
I mean, when you're someone
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
It's only a matter of time before I'm down that hole as well.
I think we're all worried about your liver.
Are we still talking about holes?
You know what? I'd rather not be anywhere near Amy Everson's hole.
No.
And that's what that movie is. It's a fucking hole. It's a fucking black void of stupidity.
There may also be something that sometimes I've seen art house films, and sometimes just thought the director just hates the audience and wants to make them sit through it and is going to read their bullshit reviews. They can't see how much the director hates them.
And the fucking choices on this film, the choices of what to film, the way that it's edited, everything is a fucking mess. But the only thing that they do right is they manage to give it moody lighting. Just, there you go. There's the moody lighting. There it is.
Yeah. She looks unclean. She just looks like she has BO.
I don't think she would care if she has BO. I think that she loves being disgusting in front of everybody.
Garden shears are really scary, you know. Women will never understand how scary garden shears are.
No, they can't understand. By dint of their female, not being men, they can't understand our fear of the garden shear.
Especially when it's a chick like that, Alden. You know, for any feminists who are listening, thinking, oh, yes, we know you fear it. We love how much you fear it. We love that we could just hold some garden shears in front of you and it'll make you scared. Yeah, you're a fearmonger. You're a fucking terrorist. This is called body horror. It's supposed to be a genre of film, but you've embodied it. You're a fucking terrorist. Yeah?
Yeah. All right, so let's get out of here. We're gonna call it. Do you guys have any final thoughts on Felt that you want the audience to know?
Fuck this movie. Fuck this artist.
No, don't.
No.
Don't fuck anybody even nearly this film.
I'm just saying,
I understand that HPV is prevalent.
I've never had the desire. I've never looked at something and thought to myself, you know, I've never had this ever happen in my brain, ever watching anything, because I seriously, you know, I don't fuck around or joke about, you know, suicide, but watching this film, I said to myself, while she was bitching and complaining, the thought popped into my head, just kill yourself. Like, lady, just get it over with. And I've never had that thought watching anything. This is that movie. This is the movie that has broken me.
Don't kill yourself, my darling. Please don't kill yourself. Nobody should kill themselves.
No.
Just take lots and lots of drugs, have a good time, just see what happens.
Yeah, nobody do that. But I've never had that thought about anyone or anything before. And
Mike?
Yes?
I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have any final thoughts?
No.
If there's anything you didn't get a chance to say.
Fuck no. I'm amazed I managed to talk for this long, actually. I hope I never remember.
How much have you had?
I'm almost at the bottom of a bottle of wine. You hear that? That's the sound of an empty bottle of wine. It was full 2 hours ago.
Yep, there we are. That's.
Well, 3 hours ago. Right.
Are you happy, Amy?
Wine, huh?
Are you fucking happy, Amy? What you did?
My final thoughts. While we've beaten this thing to death, which it probably richly deserved, I'll still go back to repeat my ultimate point. I actually think a thing like this does a disservice to actual abuse victims, and it almost looks to me like they are enabling this woman, keeping her coddled in a state of abuse. But either way, this film does not victims of abuse. In fact, it probably makes them worse.
I agree with that, actually, entirely.
Yeah.
It basically makes sure that these people never think that they can recover or get better, and that is terribly destructive to people. My last thing, too, is this movie makes artists look like losers, because she is a humongous loser. And this is one of the things that pisses me off about it, because the idea that someone who creates cannot contribute to society in the way that she does and acts like a giant child and essentially wants the whole world to change for them for whatever reason. And when that doesn't happen, she takes it out violently on people who are closest to her in one form or another. Yeah.
In other words, she's abusive, and she's being coddled in that abusive and encouraged in that abusiveness. It's really kind of sick.
Imagine a movie that sort of takes every man who's ever been abused by a woman and encourages him to take some fucking garden implements and remove whatever body part of a woman. Yeah, that would be rape culture in action, folks, and that's what's happening here.
Yeah. So yes, I can't recommend this on good.
No, don't do it unless you're interested.
We watched it for you. If you really want to put yourself through the fucking terror, that's the scare. The thing is that Felt is a horror movie, but not in the way that the director intended, I think.
No, how could they predict this? Did they?
The horror comes in when you find out how many people are okay with this movie. That's the scary part of this movie. Is that people are okay with it.
And how many guys date women who they think are just, like I said, a wounded little wounded creature that, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you went through this, and she really just happens to be this fucking crazy. That's the horror film. That's the horror aspect of this movie, is that he thought he was dealing with just somebody who had been hurt really, really badly, and instead he's dealing with a violent sociopath.
And a lot of those guys, I'm actually going to drop this, a lot of those guys were abused by their mothers, and that's why they're putting up with this.
Yep.
Chew on that one for a while.
No, I think that's true. All right, well, guys, if you enjoyed this, you like the stuff that we do, please rate, comment, subscribe. If you haven't, share with other people. Do it on your Twitter, do it on your Facebook. And, yeah, check out our website at honeybadgerbrigade.com. And don't forget to please consider donating so that we can do more and more shows. Rant Zerkers, Nerdcast, Nerd Revolts, all that shit. And that is Patreon/Honey Badger Radio. Am I right?
I think so, yes.
Yes.
Patronize us. Patriarchy us. Become our Patreon-archy.
Yes. Yes, help.
And, yes. Rachel, go ahead.
Help. Please help us spread our evil across the land, the evil message of equality.
As we all know, logic is rape, and we have lots of it to go around.